Good evening, and welcome to the CBF Gathering. Tonight, we are going to be introducing you to the Enneagram. My name is Krissi Vandagriff, and I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I live here with my husband and my 3 children. We attend Kirkwood Baptist Church, a longtime CBF member church. And I've been a student of the Enneagram for about 9 years. When I discovered the Enneagram, it changed my life. It changed the way that I parent. It changed the way that I interacted with my husband. It changed the way I interacted with my congregation. I've been teaching the Enneagram for about 7 years, doing that within the church walls and outside of it. And so I'm very excited to be able to present some of this to you tonight.
My name's Jessi Fillingham. I also live in St. Louis, Missouri, and we're here in the sanctuary of Dayspring Baptist Church, which is my home church. You might have known us as Delmar Baptist Church in the past. I've also learned about the Enneagram for the last 9 years, and I've been teaching it about 5 or 6 years. The Enneagram, I love the Enneagram, and I love it because it has helped me to understand myself so much better. And after understanding myself more, it's helped me to understand other people more, to be more honest with them and myself, to have a better understanding and awareness of God. So we're excited to be teaching you a little bit about it. So what is the Enneagram, you might be asking? You've likely heard the name before. It's become really popular lately on social media, and it's become taught more often in churches, talked about in businesses, team situations. So at its basic, it's both ancient and modern. It brings in some modern psychology and sociology paired with some spirituality that's been around for centuries. It's also, at its most basic, a 9-pointed figure. It's described as a personality typing system. And I would say that it offers a lot more beneath the surface than a typical personality typing system, because the Enneagram is based on the motivations beneath our behaviors, not the behaviors themselves. Many of us are doing the same things. Krissi and I will laugh because we do some of the same things at home, but we do it from a very different motivation. We have different fears beneath our behaviors that are driving us. Many people describe the Enneagram as showing them the box that they're in and the way to get out of it. It also has been said often that it helps people to have a more compassionate understanding of themselves and others. And I like to think of glasses when I think of the Enneagram, because it shows us the way that we see the world and how other people see the world so differently from how we do. If you see the shape of the Enneagram, the circle and the 9 types, you'll often see labels, names for each type, such as reformer, enthusiast, challenger, peacemaker. And those may sound like stereotypes, but they give a glimpse into both the gifts and the faults of every type on the Enneagram, because they're 2 sides of the same coin. Our greatest gifts are often also the pitfalls that we stumble into the most. Some people find the Enneagram to be a little negative because it comes at each type through our faults and failures, but wise spiritual teachers like Richard Rohr tell us that we learn almost exclusively through our failures. So tonight, we don't have time to touch on every single type in the Enneagram. So what we're going to do is just introduce it to you and talk about the why behind the types. This has become our favorite way to introduce the Enneagram, is to teach about the intelligence centers. So for those of you who already know about the Enneagram, you might already know your type. However, you might not have learned yet about the intelligence centers behind your type, which explains why you're so different in your type from some of the others. For those of you who have never learned about the Enneagram before, this is like a backdoor introduction. We're going to teach you about some of the inner workings of the system and help you have an opportunity to observe yourself in a new way.
So let's talk about the intelligence centers. We want to begin by discussing these 3 ways of knowing that we have. And ancient wisdom traditions, along with the Enneagram, refer to these 3 ways of knowing as the head, the heart, and then our body. That we understand things through all 3 of those. So we have this head, which is our mind. It's our thinking center. It's our intellectual center. We also have our heart. And this is literally in the center of our chest. It's our feelings and emotions. That's where we keep all of those. And then we have our body, which is our gut, and it's felt throughout the whole body. But it also is known as kind of the moving center, the doing center, the instinctual center, but it's all grounded in our body. So it's not just the gut, but it's felt throughout the entire body. And this has a relation to the human brain as well. And we live in Western culture, and Western culture has really taught us that there's only one center of intelligence, and that would be our head. But actually, humans are 3-brained creatures. And so we have our root brain, which is our instinctual center. And we have our limbic system, that's our emotional center. And then we also have the cerebral cortex, which is our thinking center. And this is also related to psychology. We can find these 3 ways of knowing in psychology, and it's related to our levels of consciousness. So we have our conscious mind, which is our head. That's where we do our self-reflection. That's where cognitive reality lives. And then we also have our subconscious mind, and that's our heart. And that's what validates our emotions. And it's this way of pointing out things that our mind can't seem to sort out or explain. So it's this way of knowing in our heart that our brain doesn't always understand. And then we have the bulk of our unconscious mind, which would be the body or the gut. And this is those instinctual drives that we have. And the lens of the Enneagram, or the core lens of the Enneagram, is really in the intelligence centers. It's how we take in human experience. It's how we outline the ways that we understand and see and perceive things.
So we have these 3 centers of intelligence, and we all have the same 3, but none of us are using them in exactly the same way. Enneagram masters teach that we each learn through our life experience that one of these centers works really well for us. And it helps us to survive in the world. And so we depend on it. It is the main tool that we pull out of our tool bag when we're trying to grow and survive. That is called, in the Enneagram world of language, it's called the dominant center. So it helps to limit our experience of pain and discomfort in the world. So you could see why we use it more often. It gets the desired results. Brené Brown explains this in some of her books as armoring up. She says, we put on armor. We use our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors as weapons. And we learned how to make ourselves scarce, even to disappear. Sometimes people describe our personality as a mask that we use to hide behind. We hide our most vulnerable inner selves behind our personality. So we have our dominant center. We also learn in life that another one of our centers doesn't help us so much, that when we use it, we're more vulnerable to pain and discomfort. And so that begins to hide. It begins to withdraw a little more. And in Enneagram language, that is known as our repressed center. So our most used is dominant, our least used is repressed, and then we have this other center that comes right in the middle, and it helps to support the dominant center. And I like to think of these 3 working together as like a big wheel tricycle. You know, the yellow, red, and blue one that has that big wheel in the front and the 2 little wheels in the back. My oldest son had one, and he would tear down the hill in our neighborhood, and then he'd come to a hard break at the bottom, and over time it wore one of the front wheel down on one side, so then he'd go down, he'd be clunk, clunk, clunk. Yeah. So imagine that front wheel like our dominant center, all right? And it's not real perfect there. You know, it's got that flat side kind of getting a hole in it, and then we have our supporting wheel in the back. It's a little smaller, but it's there. And now our third wheel, our third center, is just hidden away, and it's kind of fallen off the tricycle along the way. So we're trying to function through life, through our families and relationships and our jobs, with one big wheel that's misshapen, a little wheel, and a missing wheel. So you can see how sometimes in life it feels like we're just spinning in circles instead of really making forward motion. Now, this combination of dominant and supporting and repressed, those three different roles combined with the three different centers that Krissi talked about, the head, the heart, and the body, those make 9 different combinations together, which creates, ta-da, the 9 types on the Enneagram. So that is how we have the 9 types.
So let's talk about these 3 different centers of intelligence. So within all of us, we have healthy behaviors and we have unhealthy behaviors. We have times where we are operating in a very healthy space. We also have times where we're just kind of average, and then times where we're unhealthy. So when we start to think about these centers of intelligence, the head, the heart, and the body, there's also room for them to operate in a healthy space and an average space. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like when these centers of intelligence are operating in a healthy space. And then we're going to talk about what it looks like when these centers of intelligence are operating in average space. Because like Jessi just said, we tend to know ourselves by what we don't do well, by what we get wrong, by our failures. And so sometimes we recognize ourselves when we're operating in average space rather than healthy. But we're going to start with talking about the head center in its healthy space. So when the head center is in its healthy space, this is where we have new ideas are created. It's where we can really search for universal enlightenment and truth. We can produce vision. We are creative. There's originality. We're not just copying what we see done in the world. There's true originality there. This is the space where we get to imagine the unimaginable, where we get to really, when we say think outside the box, we really get to think outside the box when we're operating in healthy headspace. We find clarity in this space. It's also a source of inner guidance. And we tend to really think about inner guidance coming from our heart, but inner guidance really comes from our head and the clarity that we find there.
Let's talk about the heart center. The heart center in its healthy space offers us the gift of true identity, love, and value. So I want you to imagine those moments when you have been able to find your value just internally, in and of yourself. We all know what it's like to watch people try to seek outside themselves for value and manipulate others to find their self-worth. The gift of the heart center is when we've already got it. It's already here. The heart center creates compassion and awareness of divine love. Some describe it as our spiritual antenna. Mm-hmm. And it draws us outside ourselves so we can connect with others' experiences. I've seen this in some moments with my kids. My oldest son was going into 6th grade this year, and last fall, his first year of middle school, it was during the pandemic, it was virtual school, and it was hard. It was hard. He'd never done virtual school before. The teachers hadn't either. They also were doing block schedule for the first time, so my son was having to remember that going from first period then went to third period, not second period. Mm-hmm. The teachers had a different Zoom link for every period. In one of his classes on the first day of school, the Zoom link wasn't working, and I was trying to help him get in. You know, I as a parent, this is new for me too, so wasn't necessarily my best moment. I'm getting impatient and panicking. He's getting nervous, trying the link. I decided to tell him he should try the link for a different class period. And I walked away to help another one of my children. When I came back, my son was in the same position. He had not clicked a button. He was paralyzed. I, on the other hand, was furious. I wanted to see some action, some problem solving. And I am so grateful for the grace of a moment. I had this brief moment where I was able to really see him. And I credit my heart center for this because I looked and I realized that what he was feeling was not laziness or apathy. What he was feeling was fear and shame. And I was able to ask him some questions, and he explained to me that he was really afraid of showing up in the wrong class. And, imagine a 6th grader on his first day of school showing up in an 8th grade classroom and people laughing at him. So he had that insecurity and that fear. And because of the gift of the Heart Center, I was able to come outside of my experience of impatience and panic to share his experience of fear. Those are the kinds of moments where our Heart Center can really bring us together.
We also have the body center. And what does that look like when it's operating in a healthy space? Well, when we're really inhabiting our body, when we are grounded in our body, it just brings a sense of fullness and stability and autonomy. Imagine if you're on a boat and you're trying to stand up, how you just feel so wobbly, like you can't quite stand still. So when we are grounded in our body, we can. We're not wobbly. We're not moving about. We are able to be grounded and have stability. And that brings a connection to our bodies when we have that groundedness. It's also a place of stillness and inner strength that we are able to, when we can connect to the gift of our body center, then we really can find an inner strength. And it brings a stillness. There's been so many times where, particularly in this last year, when everything is so uncertain and it feels like the rules are constantly changing, that I found my head going 90 miles an hour, and then I found my emotions trying to keep up with it. And so then brings on some anxiety. And I can feel it happening, and I'm not quite sure how to stop my brain. But it's when I am still in my body and I take some grounding deep breaths that all that mental chatter starts to stop. And then my emotions can kind of calm down, and there's just a stillness that comes. But I have to connect to my body in order for that to happen. And our bodies and the healthy body center is really an affirming force. It's about reaching out. It's about embracing. It's about making contact. That's been hard in this last year. We forget that not only have we felt disconnected and it's all been kind of virtual, but we miss the embrace, the handshake, the reaching out to comfort someone as a physical presence, not just a phone call, but as a physical presence. And that's the gift of the body center.
Enneagram teachers teach us that, unfortunately, most of the time we're not living out of this healthy space. Right. Most of the time we're living in average space.
Right.
So average space is when we are just living habitually and we're compulsively reacting to life. We're just being led along. It's like those drives when you're going somewhere that you've been a million times. And when you arrive, you realize you can't remember the journey of going from point A to point B. You kind of just fell asleep, you zoned out along the way. And teachers tell us that this is how we are living life. So in order to find the healthiest parts of our intelligence centers are knowing that it takes intentional practices and spiritual work. And one image that helps me to understand this is this ball. Average space is like this when we're all tight and compacted and in knots. And when we are able to be more present and aware and healthy, then it's like opening up to a whole new possibility of life.
Well, and there's clarity too. You can see through it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So imagine this ball when you think of average space and healthy space. There's a different way of knowing. The head center in average space is making small plans and opinions and idle curiosity. There's a lot of overanalyzing and mental chatter. Mm-hmm. This might come through rehashing old conversations. Those times when you think, oh, I wish I had said this, or wait a second, she said this. It's that cyclical thinking, when our thoughts create this rut because there's just this pattern of thinking that we keep falling through over and over again. For myself, I have found that mental chatter is often a self-critical voice. And it's so familiar to me that I don't even recognize how demeaning and cruel it is. Average head center is forming strategies in reaction to doubts and fears and anxieties. For many of you, it might come through worst case scenario planning. And you might not just do this one time a day, but all day in every situation that you walk into. It's instinctual for you. You are automatically thinking of the worst case scenario planning for that. Average head center is planning for the trivial without planning for the important things. I found myself doing this when I was working on a Word document, and I got so distracted by the details of the formatting that I wasn't even paying attention to the content of the document. Another visual of the head center in average and healthy space is a glitter jar. Some of you may have made one of these for your kids, or you may have used one yourself. You have a jar with water and glitter in it, and when you shake it up, that glitter is all swirling around. And if you set it down, then the glitter gradually falls to the bottom. Now in our average space, that glitter is all swirling around and our minds are so busy, there's no clarity and true understanding. But when we can allow it to calm, then we can see more clearly. So the average heart center. This would look like emotionality, lots of emotions, maybe all over the place, maybe just getting caught up in emotions. It's also holding on to moods, not being able to, get yourself out of a certain mood. There can be some oversensitivity that develops too, some insensitivity to the feelings of other people. And then also some emotional manipulation, trying to manipulate people to get what you need emotionally. I know through this past year of the pandemic that I have experienced all of these. I lead from my heart center, and I have had times where I have been extremely oversensitive to something someone has said in passing, and I've just held on to it. I've also been really insensitive at times to my children and what they're going through. The fact that they have spent this year disconnected and isolated at times, and I've just not been as sensitive to those needs. That comes when we're living out of the average heart center. But one thing that is really unique to folks in the average heart center who lead with their heart center and find themselves in an average space is that they don't always understand who they are. Their self-image and their self-identity is found in you. And it's kind of like looking in a mirror when there's no mirror there. Normally when you look in a mirror, you see your reflection back at you. But when someone who is operating out of the average heart space is looking in a mirror, they're just looking at you. And they're trying to understand who they are by looking at you. And so it's your reactions to them, it's your responses to them that they understand who they are. And that can be really scary and vulnerable because it gives the other person all the power to determine who they are, what they believe about things, how they see themselves. But that's what happens when we're operating out of this average heart center. When Krissi described the gifts of the healthy body center, she described that groundedness that comes. And so in average space, we're missing that groundedness. Mm-hmm. So instead, the body tries to defend itself by dissociation, numbness, and tension. So many of us are very disconnected from our bodies, and there are things that the body's trying to tell us, and we are missing it. Especially here in the West, we are estranged from the wisdom of our bodies. Our culture really discredits the knowledge of the gut and the gut instinct. We're only aware of our bodies when we're in pain. Another thing you might notice in average space for the body center is this maneuvering for power and autonomy. And remember, this is instinctual and habitual. This is how we live when we're not aware. These are just our routines. So this would be trying to manipulate for your autonomy, and sometimes that happens in aggressive ways, in very obvious and outward ways. Other times it happens very passively. People can manipulate for autonomy without saying a word. Passive aggressive is a real thing. Also, in average space, there's a real resistance to reality. And I've observed this in myself a lot more in the last few years, after learning about the Enneagram for a number of years. And I feel the internal tension in myself, my internal self resisting what's going on, what people are doing. And I found a really great visual for this is the finger trap. Many of you might have gotten it in a birthday party bag.
Oh, yeah.
And you stick your fingers in it, and when you resist it and try to pull your fingers out, they're stuck. You can't get it out. But if you just relax, that's the only way for the fibers in it to open up and release your fingers. So that's our image of the body center in average space versus when we can be more relaxed and healthy and not resistant.
So we've talked about the centers of intelligence. We've talked about what they look like when they're operating in a healthy space. And we've talked about what they look like when they're operating in an average space. And while we haven't talked about each individual Enneagram type, you can still narrow down your type by recognizing and paying attention to what leads, what is dominant, like Jessi said, in your life. Do you find that you're leading more from your heart center or your head center or your body? Like, do you find yourself just up and moving and you don't even know that you've done it? Well, you might be leading from your body center. Or do you find that sometimes your heart, all you do is relate to another person through your emotions? Do you find that you have to think and overthink about things? Then you might be leading from your head center. So there's a way for you to kind of, if you don't know your Enneagram type, to really narrow down where your intelligence center might be, what your dominant intelligence center might be. And that will help you kind of narrow the playing field, so to speak, in determining your Enneagram type.
Hurley and Dobson are master Enneagram teachers, and they've said the awesome reality of the 3 centers of intelligence is the core of the Enneagram and reveals how it's much more than a personality typing tool. So we hope that this little introduction, this kind of backdoor introduction we've given you, can just kind of whet your appetite for more. Our hope and prayer is that this helps you begin or continue on your journey of self-awareness and understanding, and that if we can all untangle those knots of our personality a little bit more, that we can all become more free to follow the flow of God within and around us. So thank you for watching.
Yes.
And if you would like to learn more about the Enneagram, Krissi and I would be happy to either meet with you for one-on-one coaching or to teach a workshop in person or virtually. So we have our email addresses here on the screen, and we hope that you'll contact us if you want to learn more. And we hope this has been a blessing to you tonight.
Yes. Thank you so much.